Hi, my name is Lily Mitchell, and today I'm going to be talking about how a family member's abuse of drug and alcohol affected me growing up. This topic can be very sensitive for some people. It does talk about the use of drugs, alcohol, and death, so if this is where you are triggered, I would stop listening now. Also, please note all of these images are from Google. But many people have dealt with this cycle. Here's how it affected me personally. It affected things like my personality, my mental health, my view on people going through the same cycle, and how I've been able to handle changes. So before I was even born, both my mother and father had issues with drug and alcohol abuse. 2 days before I turned 2 years old, my mother died in a girls' trip in Daytona. I was told from my dad and my grandparents who I lived with that she died of pneumonia in her sleep. However, when I turned 17, my grandma finally told me that she had died of an overdose. My dad was always too in denial to admit it. After my mom died, my dad was never the same person. He was almost never home for 90% of the time. As I got older, in middle school and high school is when a turn took in me and my dad's relationship. It became almost non-existent. My dad would scream at me for the smallest of things, say a lot of negative things that I'm going to choose not to share the details of, and make me feel like he wasn't even my dad. Every time I would come home from school or being out with friends, I would pray he wasn't home. All this happening while going through major hormonal changes drastically made my mental health drop, and I became severely depressed. My dad lied to me a lot throughout my childhood. He would steal my allowance money in the middle of the night to go buy cigarettes. He would tell me he would be home by a certain time at night and not show up till later the next day. He would tell me he was going to get sober, and he would for about a week, and then he would relapse. This caused severe trust issues, not only with my dad, but with everybody else in my life. I'm working on personally fixing those issues, even though I know it's a long road to go. Through my teenage years, I grew to hold a lot of resentment towards my father, and while our relationship had finally started to take a more positive turn in fixing it, he passed away. He passed away in a major motorcycle accident just over a month before I turned 18. This sent me into a kind of spiral for a few months of major regret about how our relationship was, and that now I would never get the chance to fix it or forgive him for anything. This leads me to my next point of how I view others going through this same cycle. With everything I saw with my parents and the way it affected me, it let me show a lot of compassion towards others. Most would ask the question, Lily, doesn't it make you angry to see others going through that same cycle that caused you so much pain? The simple answer, no. It's not easy and it takes a lot of willpower, but I understand how hard it is to break that cycle. I always like to say, mind over matter. I preach this every chance I get, and so much so, I even got it tattooed on my knee. I'll show compassion and kindness to people going through the cycle because sometimes that's all they need to help themselves. They need to know that someone is there for them and understands them and will be there for them to get help. Because you never know someone's past. You're only seeing what's in front of you in the moment. You don't know what's going on through everything else. To conclude, these things have made me who I am now. While I could have let it drag me down, I choose to use it towards my advantage. Every time I have a little bump in the road, I think back to all the challenges I had growing up. I think back to all the challenges I had growing up and tell myself that nothing is compared to those. Everything I do is in regard to my parents to make sure that no matter what, I will love them always, and regardless of the relationship we had, I will still do everything to make them proud.